if you were asked to map out a city, you'd probably expect the streets to, well, stay exactly where they are.
Right, you expect the buildings to just remain stationary.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
You'd expect the traffic lights to follow a normal, predictable pattern. It would be this very concrete, objective reality.
Mm.
But when we actually try to map out our own minds, suddenly we're dealing with a city where the streets constantly shift direction.
Yeah, they completely change based on your context.
Right, and the buildings change shape depending on, like, how tired you are, and
Mm.
half the traffic is completely invisible to you. We sort of expect our brains to be these logical, transparent control rooms, but the reality is just incredibly murky.
It really is. I mean, it's the absolute definition of a moving target. We like to think of ourselves as being entirely in control of our perceptions, But the architecture of our own mind is constantly operating on levels we don't even consciously perceive.
And that hidden architecture is exactly what we are digging into on today's deep dive. We are pulling from some really fascinating research by Robert Biswas-Diener and Jake Teeney.
Right, specifically their work on states of consciousness.
Exactly. It's from the NOBA psychology textbook, Discovering Psychology 2.0, which was put together by the Diner Education Fund. And it takes this massive abstract concept of consciousness and breaks it down into observable mechanical parts.
Which is so necessary because it's such a broad term.
It is. So before we get into the gears of how the mind works, we need to clarify the baseline for you, the listener. Because when most of us say consciousness, we just mean, well, not being asleep. We think of it as a biological light switch.
Yeah, that is the common misconception.
Yeah.
But in cognitive science, consciousness isn't a switch. It is the fundamental first-person subjective experience of the world.
It's the whole package.
Exactly. It is the awareness of your own body, your private mental perspectives, internal sensations, and the external environmental stimuli all around you. It's basically the raw material of what it feels like to be you at any given millisecond.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the core of this research is that this awareness is multi-layered. To understand how the mind functions, we have to look at how it filters the sheer, absolute chaos of everyday life without getting completely overwhelmed.
Right. The brain is constantly filtering.
Yeah, so imagine you are at a loud, chaotic campus gathering. Let's say it's midnight, October 10th, 2026. The room is packed to the walls.
Sounds overwhelming already.
Oh, totally. You've got dozens of competing voices, bass-heavy music shaking the floor, glasses clinking, and your brain just compresses all of that into an indistinguishable wall of background noise. You aren't processing the individual conversations around you at all.
Right, you're just tuning it out.
But then, all the way across the room, someone casually mentions your exact name.
Instantly, your brain snaps into sharp focus.
Right. Your head whips around.
Yeah.
You somehow capture that specific stream of information out of a sea of identical audio waves.
The mechanics behind that are just fascinating. It's a foundational concept called the cocktail party effect. And it perfectly illustrates how our brains actively track and monitor our surroundings, even when we feel entirely tuned out.
Like we're always secretly listening.
Exactly. That is the definition of awareness. Your auditory cortex is still processing the ambient noise, and a specific neural filter, which is often linked to the reticular activating system in your brainstem, is basically standing guard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it scans the environment for highly relevant stimuli, like your name or maybe a baby crying. When it detects that signal, it bypasses the noise and shoves that information straight into your conscious awareness.
It's like a bouncer at the door of your mind who ignores the general crowd but instantly throws open the velvet rope for a VIP.
I love that analogy. The pioneering psychologist William James actually captured this dynamic beautifully. He wrote, consciousness then does not appear to itself chopped up in bits. A river or a stream are the metaphors by which it is most naturally described.
Ah, the famous stream of consciousness.
Right. It flows continuously. And Biswas-Diener and Teeney use a really elegant analogy for how we navigate this river. They compare our lower states of awareness to drifting passively in a rubber raft.
Okay, a rubber raft.
Yeah, you are just floating along, processing subtle cues automatically. You aren't paddling. It doesn't require active mental resources or cause cognitive fatigue.
But when you hear your name at that party, you aren't in the raft anymore.
No, absolutely not. At that point, you've transitioned to high awareness, which they compare to steering a canoe.
Okay, so you're actively paddling now.
You are gripping the paddle. This state demands intentional execution, rigorous mental effort, and selective focus. We use the canoe to solve complex problems, correct errors, or navigate highly specific social interactions.
Wait, let me push back on this framing for a second, though.
Sure, go for it.
Because the way this is often presented makes it sound like steering the canoe is the optimal enlightened state, and the raft is just us being lazy or unfocused. But if steering the canoe requires intentional execution and rigorous mental effort, isn't staying in the raft actually a biological feature, not a bug?
How do you mean?
Like, think about your smartphone. When the battery dips below 20%, it automatically drops into low power mode. It dims the screen, cuts background app refresh, limits processing speed. Isn't the rubber raft just our brain's low power mode? If I tried to steer the canoe all day, using effortful logic to tie my shoes or make my morning coffee, my brain would be fried by 9 in the morning.
No, you are hitting on a crucial point about cognitive load theory there. The brain is an energy-hungry organ. I mean, it consumes about 20% of our body's total energy despite being a tiny fraction of our weight.
Right, so we need the raft.
The raft is absolutely a survival mechanism. Automatic processing preserves precious metabolic energy. But we run into a severe modern challenge here.
Which is what?
The environments we navigate today, like universities, corporate offices, complex digital landscapes, they often require us to stay in the canoe for unnatural extended periods of time. Our biology violently resists that.
Because we naturally want to drop back into the raft to save our cognitive battery.
Exactly. Which is why researchers are actively developing tools to artificially keep us in the canoe. Like, there was a study published in early 2026 in the Journal of Higher Education News. They looked at university students using automated focus tracking applications during dense lecture.
Oh, I think I've heard of these. It's not just blocking social media, right?
No, it goes far beyond just blocking distracting websites. These apps use real-time biometric feedback. They track pupillary dilation, microsaccades of the eye, and subtle shifts in posture via the laptop's camera.
Wait, really? So the app physically measures the biological markers of you dropping into low power mode?
Yes. It identifies the exact millisecond your eyes literally glaze over and lose that active tracking movement. When it detects you drifting back into the raft, it provides a subtle haptic feedback pump, like a vibration on a smart wristband.
Oh, wow, that's intense.
It is, but it mechanically trains the student to transition back into effortful, engaged cognitive focus. The students utilizing this specific biometric loop experience a 40% increase in sustained high awareness states during their lectures.
A 40% jump in cognitive endurance is staggering.
And the researchers emphasize how vital this is for non-traditional learners. I mean, consider an older adult learner who just finished a 9-hour shift at a job, managed family obligations, and is now sitting down for an evening lecture.
They must be exhausted.
Their cognitive battery is fundamentally depleted before the professor even speaks. The biological drive to drop into the raft is just overwhelming. These biometric tools act as a scaffold, artificially maintaining the canoe state when the student's biology is screaming for the raft.
That structural support is amazing, but it brings up a deeply unsettling implication about the raft itself. I mean, if we are floating down the river in a low state of consciousness, letting automatic processing take over to save energy, we aren't steering.
Right, we're just drifting.
And if we aren't steering, we are relying on automated neurological shortcuts.
Shortcuts that can hijack our decision-making in ways that contradict who we think we are.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at what actually happens under the hood when you leave the mind on autopilot. Imagine it's a rainy Tuesday morning in April 2026. You are participating in a landmark psychological trial, sitting alone in a room before a glowing screen. You are taking the implicit association test, or IAT.
Ah, right. A famously polarizing and powerful diagnostic tool.
On this screen, flashing images of diverse faces appear rapidly alongside positive and negative words. Your job is to categorize them as quickly as your fingers can hit the keys. You don't have time to process or rationalize, you just react.
Because it's measuring your reaction time down to the millisecond.
Exactly. It's looking at how tightly your brain has wired two concepts together. And what this test reveals are hidden associative preferences that bypass conscious awareness entirely.
The test forces you into the raft. You literally cannot process the images fast enough using the canoe.
And the conflict it exposes is wild. These Rapid subconscious shortcuts, which are basically cognitive biases, they frequently completely contradict a person's explicitly stated moral beliefs and egalitarian values. I mean, have you ever caught yourself making a snap judgment about a classmate that clashed with your actual moral beliefs?
Most people have, even if they don't want to admit it.
Right. A split second later, your conscious brain intervenes and says, wait, why did I just think that? That's not what I believe at all.
What's fascinating here is that the mechanics of how that snap judgment forms come down to a neurological phenomenon called priming.
Priming, right.
Yeah, priming is the process where recent exposure to a stimulus subconsciously influences your behavior. When you are in a low awareness state, desperately seeking cognitive efficiency, you become highly vulnerable to priming effects and implicit stereotypes.
Because your guard is down.
Exactly. Your brain grabs onto whatever social shortcuts it has absorbed from media, culture, or your immediate environment, regardless of whether those shortcuts are fair or logical.
It's a terrifying vulnerability, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Our conscious values do not always dictate our automatic behavioral responses.
No, they don't. Carl Jung actually summarized the danger of this dynamic perfectly. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Until you make the unconscious conscious. If we ground that in everyday reality, it makes total sense. It's like when you are absolutely exhausted after a long day operating entirely on the raft and you snapped your partner over something trivial.
Right, you don't mean to.
Your conscious mind loves your partner, but your unconscious exhaustion directed your behavior. Overcoming these automatic distortions requires us to deliberately activate high conscious awareness. We have to grab the paddle and monitor our own reflexive reactions.
Deliberate mental effort acts as a neurological checkpoint. It overrides those subconscious prejudices.
And we are actually seeing society try to mandate this neurological checkpoint, which is fascinating. There was a March 2026 article in the Campus Democracy Review about universities implementing mandatory bias awareness software for their admissions interns.
Because when admissions interns evaluate hundreds of applicant portfolios in a single sitting, cognitive fatigue is inevitable.
All right, they get tired.
They naturally slip into low awareness to save energy. And that passive state is exactly when unconscious favoritism infiltrates the evaluation rubrics.
So the software acts as a structural intervention. It tracks how long a reviewer looks at a specific file. If the system detects that an intern is speeding through certain demographic portfolios 30% faster than others relying on the raft, the software literally locks the screen.
Oh, wow. It forces them to stop.
Yes. It forces the evaluator to write out a specific rationalization for their score before moving on.
It yanks them back into the canoe, forcing that high conscious state.
Exactly. It acts as that crucial checkpoint. By forcing high awareness, the protocol directly shields traditional students and historically marginalized groups from systemic grading disparities. It proves that we can use intentional effort and technology to override the trance of the raft. But this raises another question.
What's that?
What if we actually want to induce a trance? What if diving deliberately deep into an altered state of consciousness isn't a vulnerability, but like a key to healing?
This brings us to clinical dissociation, which is arguably the most fiercely misunderstood mechanism in all of psychology.
To clear the air, let's contrast two radically different versions of this from the text. Picture a packed theater on a Friday night in November 2026. A stage hypnotist is commanding volunteer participants to bark like dogs or perform ridiculous stunts while the crowd roars with laughter.
Right. That is the theatrical illusion of absolute mind control.
Yeah.
The media portrays the subjects as completely helpless automatons.
Now, contrast that illusion with clinical science. Genuine hypnotherapy taking place in a professional medical setting.
This raises an important question about personal agency. The clinical reality challenges our assumptions entirely. Clinical hypnosis is not subjugation. It is a collaborative state of heightened suggestibility, incredibly focused attention, and deep physical relaxation.
Let me chime in to clarify the vocabulary here, because a lot of people equate hypnosis with simply being put to sleep. But biologically, sleep is a state where sensory activity is naturally reduced and your muscles undergo temporary atonia. They are inactivated.
Right, your brain shifts into slow delta waves.
But a trance, which is what clinical hypnosis induces, isn't sleep at all, is it? It's an acute dissociation from your immediate physical environment. So instead of being asleep, is a trance more like putting on a pair of high-end, noise-canceling headphones for your brain?
That is a great way to put it.
Like, you are intensely acute, you are focused, but you are utilizing the trance to deliberately block out distracting external stimuli.
The noise-canceling headphone analogy is perfect. During this induced trance, the patient experiences a safe dissociation. The critical, chattering faculty of the conscious mind is quieted. But because they are highly focused inward, the patient maintains total control over their behaviors and moral boundaries.
Oh, so they can't be made to do something they don't want to do.
Exactly. A hypnotherapist cannot suggest an action that violates your core values. Your self-preservation instincts remain entirely intact.
You aren't surrendering your autonomy. You're bypassing the noise to harness it.
And clinicians use this targeted state of awareness to treat severe medical conditions. We see incredible efficacy in chronic pain management, where the brain is taught to interpret pain signals differently.
Right.
It's also used for treating intense anxiety and facilitating smoking cessation. It basically unlocks a patient's dormant self-regulatory capabilities.
And this isn't just fringe science anymore. It's being deployed in mainstream collegiate environments. A June 2026 report from the Collegiate Health Journal outlined how university wellness clinics are rapidly adopting virtual reality hypnotherapy programs.
The integration of virtual reality is huge because it solves a major hurdle, which is the patient's inability to visualize a relaxing environment on their own.
They use this specifically to help underclassmen and adult learners manage severe examination anxiety. These students are overwhelmed, facing high-stakes testing, and instead of immediately prescribing pharmacological interventions, clinics use VR headsets.
That's incredible.
The technology utilizes specific visual focal points and binaural audio beats to physically shift the brain from fast, anxious beta waves down into those slower, suggestible theta waves. It induces the trance mechanically.
And once the student is in that state, the program suggests lasting self-regulation techniques they can trigger later during their actual exams.
Right.
It completely reframes our understanding of the mind's capacity to heal itself. Sigmund Freud, despite the extensive evolution of his theories over the last century, provided an enduring visual for the sheer volume of this hidden mental capacity. He noted, "The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water."
So the 1/7 visible above the water is the canoe. It's our high conscious steering awareness.
And clinical hypnosis is basically a scientifically grounded tool to safely access the submerged 6/7. It allows us to dive below the surface.
Okay, so what does this all mean? We started on the surface of the river, drifting in the passive rubber raft of low awareness. It is a biological imperative, a low-power mode that saves our cognitive battery, but it leaves us wildly vulnerable to the hidden currents of implicit bias and automated shortcuts.
Right.
To overcome those biases, we have to actively grab the paddle. We engage the rigorous mental effort of the canoe, elevating our consciousness to act as a rational checkpoint against our own automatic distortions.
And finally, we explored how we can intentionally dive beneath the river altogether. Through the noise-canceling headphones of clinical hypnotherapy, we enter a healing trance, safely dissociating from our environment to unlock powerful self-regulation.
It's an incredible journey through the shifting architecture of human awareness.
It really is. But if we connect all these mechanisms to the broader trajectory of our society, it leaves us with a rather profound paradox to mull over. Throughout this exploration, we've seen that human biology naturally seeks cognitive efficiency. We desperately want to drop into low-power mode and rely on subconscious shortcuts. But to counter the negative consequences of the raft, we are increasingly relying on automated technologies to do the heavy lifting.
Like the biometric focus trackers and the bias awareness software.
Exactly. We are literally building machines to monitor our consciousness for us. So the question we need to evaluate is this. If our biology naturally seeks the raft, and we are increasingly outsourcing the monitoring of our awareness to algorithms and biometric feedback loops, are we actually expanding our high conscious awareness, or are we simply outsourcing the steering of our canoe to a machine?
Wow. Are we the ones holding the paddle, or is the machine holding us? That is a heavy, lingering thought to walk away with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the states of consciousness. It is a wild, constantly shifting map, and we hope this conversation eliminated some of the invisible traffic in your own mind. As you go about your week, we encourage you to be mindful of exactly who or what is navigating your river of consciousness today. We will see you next time.